Keep your eye on that. 5 seconds. You're live.
Good evening, everyone. This is the Town of Auburn Fire Station Building Committee meeting for January 6, 2025. I remind everybody that this is being broadcast and being recorded. Ask if anybody else is recording. Okay, seeing none. All right. So as we get started here, we have chosen the last couple of meetings for our interviews for the owner project managers, the OPMs, and we after our checklist and grading and stuff, we picked left field was our primary one, and the town went ahead and made the award to them and everything. So they are here tonight to get started on this whole thing. So if you guys want to introduce and get us rolling here.
Great. Thanks for having us, and we're actually very excited about doing your project. I'm Joe Sullivan. I'm the project executive and your day-to-day contact.
Melissa Shatani, project manager. I'll be working alongside Joe and Connor.
And Connor Sullivan, project manager.
Great. And Matt, obviously we had Matt attend as well from the design side of it. If you want, I can just jump into. All right, great, thanks. I put together an agenda. It's a little bit longer than typical, but I wanted to make sure that we identified all of the categories and deliverables and topics of discussion that we want to at least address tonight and figure out how we're moving forward with each of them as we move forward. The first one is schedule. We're all shooting for a May town meeting, obviously, and that's going to be a robust set of drawings to get us to that point, along with a cost estimate and a budget that we'll put together along discussion side of the designer and the building committee to make sure that we're encompassing all of the categories that are going to be needed to be identified on that budget as we move forward for that town meeting. What I'd like to do is actually get the actual date, if I can, of the town meeting, and we're going to work backwards on our schedule so that, you know, there's certain milestone and keys that we're going to need to do, whether it's cost estimate or reconciliations or even just some design reviews that we're going to try to make sure that we're looking at the efficiencies of the design of the program as we move forward. So once I have that, we'll put the schedule together for our next meeting. I should have a schedule in detail that'll show you each of those parameters. That's going to include any outreach or public forums if we decide that we're going to need to have them, and or mailings that we're going to have a little conversation about that as well as part of the agenda. Does that make sense on schedule-wise? Okay. Review of the program needs. This is probably one of, I appreciate Matt sending over the conceptual drawings that he had, and I started to dig into the drawings and actually start to just do a design review of my content. And it's more of efficiencies within the building, and as well as some of my experience that I've had on other fire stations to just maybe correlate and give some feedback, not only to the fire department, but to the designer to make sure that we're all on the same page. One of the items as we go through this process is to ensure the baseline of the original design is the baseline that you're starting with. Is that fair to say at this point? Between now and May, if we can find some efficiencies and or if there's specific needs that we need within that drawing, we're going to try to encompass that before we have that robust cost associated with it prior to town meeting. Okay?
Okay.
Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. The drawing review, what I'd like to do, and I'm going to set it up hopefully with the fire department over the next week to 10 days. We're going to sit down and actually do a page turn. And I've already looked at the drawings, but I want to sit with them and really I have a good understanding, but I want to have a great understanding of their operations, just in case there's something that I see that they're planning on that we might, give a recommendation on. So that'll be part of the design review. I would hope the architect would be in attendance of that, just so that we're not repeating ourselves twice. Everybody's hearing the same information and we can correlate that. That make sense? Okay.
Is there anything you want to question tonight or ask about the design? Do we have? I don't know if we have it to project. If anybody's got it, the plans to project.
Did you bring the plans at all on yet?
If there was anything to.
Laptop if we need to.
I don't. I might just.
Yeah, I mean, what I'd like to do is spend the next, and not to be put on the spot, but I want to be able to correlate a few of them, maybe have a conversation with
Okay.
the architect, because he may have already thought about them and making some, efficiencies within that, like the entranceways, there's just the meeting space entrances that I was looking at. Is the space going to be utilized after hours? How would that be utilized if that was the case? Those are the type of things that I started to correlate. And even the locations of where they're proposing medical supplies versus some of their, like, workbench areas that they're planning on. Those are all things that I just want to kind of give my opinion on it and then hear their program as they go through it. The next item on the agenda was the public outreach. I think this is probably the most critical to make sure that we have support in the town to be able to move forward with the project come May. We talked about it during our interview, and part of the process is putting together a trifold mailing that would go out. Normally, outside of this committee, outside of the designer and the OPM, a volunteer committee usually takes that task on. We try to isolate the crossover of, what's the word I want to use? Deliberation of what should be encompassed in that, and keep it as a neutral party that's sending these out to the public. It should include any of the dynamics of any of the frequent asked questions. Tax impacts are usually included in that because people want to know, until you tap them in the wallet, they don't really pay attention. And then once you show them where we're at and what some of the tax implications might be, that's a great little part of it. Why the station's needed, what size, what program's going to be included in there, why you chose the design that you did. Those are all like frequent questions. I just want to be ahead of it rather than trying to be reactive to it, that's all. Does that make sense? So if the committee knows of a small group that would love to be able to take that responsibility on, that would be wonderful. Otherwise, we're going to probably have to have a conversation about that.
Yeah.
Who handles the website now? Is that
Chief Charles.
that's internal to you guys? Because that's all the information right there, most of it, I
Right.
think.
As long as it can, we can talk about that. I just want to make sure that we're not crossing any lines as far as, the influence of the information going out, that's all.
Yeah, typically we would just want a few people that are familiar with the town and kind of what are the information, what are the questions being asked from them, so that way we can tailor this to inform them about the project and garner their support. So it would just be helpful if we had like maybe one or two people that could give feedback on what we would include in that trifold. It'll probably be something that I'll be working on, so.
That makes sense? We don't need it tonight, I mean, it'll
Yeah.
be, obviously. And then, I've had a lot of success. About a meeting's you only get to the people that actually come out and attend, but what we try to do is pick locations throughout the town. It may be different, locations, localities, sections of it that we can pull certain groups to and provide that transparency and that same information to those individuals. Nothing worse is when someone goes to a coffee shop, starts rattling about the project, and someone didn't hear about it, and it's the wrong information that's going out there. So I want to make sure that, we're at least identifying between now and May, if there's 2 or 3 locations that we can present, an dated set of drawings and maybe costs and any other information that we might have, and correlate what group would be actually presenting at that particular public forum.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of work needed in this area, just so the site itself is highly visible. Everybody knows that the building was torn down. There's a lot of
Questions already?
conjecture about, it's a done deal, it's not a done deal, it's going to cost $1 gazillion. It's
Social media's been hot.
So yeah, there was a 100-comment social media thread just yesterday or over the weekend about it, because people, and it's
Yeah,
all
lots-
kinds of
yep.
misinformed or informed, going on. So I Auburn is a very small physical town, so it's not like there's Whitensville and a
Right.
Sutton Center and whatever you have to do. It's Auburn is 16 square miles and it's 4x4, so you can get anywhere in 5 minutes. So
Okay.
we have venues that we could use for public forum. We have I suppose everybody has their favorite coffee shop or whatever that you pick one of the 6 or whatever here in town, and but I think a lot of the chatter has been social media chatter, and that's where I think it's gonna be urgent, I think, to get correct
Ahead of it.
information out, because this has been a 3-year project, right? So, or more. So there's been a lot of change in what we were planning on doing, and a lot of, different directions, and COVID in the middle of it, and all of that. So, it is gonna be, a pretty big task to be like, this is the real information, and here's the source of truth, and things like that.
Yeah, it's a transparency that I want to make sure that we're being upfront on. When someone hears the truth 5 or 6 times, it starts to sink in a little bit more than, the misconceptions that can be put out there. So I agree with you. Whatever those locations, I want to make sure we're ahead of it, that's all.
Yeah.
If you have a list of that public forum that's been out there on comments, that would be helpful, because that'll help Alyssa start to orientate some of the comments and feedback from that.
Yep.
Right? And then the funding of the trifold, normally there's a mailing that goes out there. I'll have to talk with the town and the chief and our office and the architect to figure out how that funding source will be taken care of. Usually sometimes there's funds that are raised to make those mailings happen, so we'll talk about that process and how we can try to orchestrate that. You want to talk about the LSP a little bit?
Yes, so we put out a request for services to do geotech work on the site. So that will include borings and test pits. We're going to be utilizing the DPW to help us with equipment and operator for some of those test pits. And we've began to get numbers in. So we got our first number, and I think it was around 8,600. So right in line with what we thought it would be. Still waiting on 2 more numbers. We reached out to LGCI, SW Cole, and GSI, and I think 1 more.
Yeah.
And so we're still waiting 2 more quotes. SW Cole, one of the guys that works there is a firefighter, very interested in the project. And we've worked with LGCI in the past plenty, both very interested in the project. So we want to get that work done in a timely fashion. And this will do things like inform us of the material on site, and also how deep we can go with the foundations and where the groundwater level is, and if there's any ledge on the site as well. So that's the goal of that.
Once we have those quotes in hand, we'll present a recommendation for award, and then we talked about having funds available within what you currently have to maybe absorb a portion of, or if not all of it, and then that'll actually give us a little bit more insight within the budget to determine like some of the exposure that we might have. That's all. Right? And that was a big topic. I'm sure that the unforeseen conditions that were within the site. It'll tell us gradation of soil. It'll tell us a lot of information that will be prudent not only to the design but for the information for the town as well. Budget review. We talked about it. Based on the square footage that's currently there, what the running costs are going right now. I can tell you, a estimated value of square footage for that size building, and then we're utilizing that as a starting point, not necessarily an end point. And then we're going to look at the efficiencies and the design itself to figure out, what we can try to do to reduce scope or maybe add scope if the needs are required based on that. Addition to that is there's going to be some soft costs associated with that, not only the architectural services, but the OPM through design and closeout and construction and closeout. I've asked Jeff and his team to put together what those costs would be to move forward through that process. So I can clearly identify and correlate it within the budget. So there's nothing that we're not going to know about going into that Maytown meeting. Okay?
Okay.
And that goes to equipment needs too. I've already put together a list, and I'm going to forward it over to the fire department, just a correlated list of what we've done in the past with brand new headquarters. And then he can let me know, whether there's items on there that are gonna be required, or there's items that, you know, I've got covered that we've already we calculated a value associated with that, so that when we build like FF&E, and any of the incidental costs outside of the actual construction, we wanna identify those. Okay? And the budget, I'm hopeful by our next meeting, I'm gonna have a draft. That'll be up for discussion, obviously, initially from us. I would like to run it by the architect first, just to make sure that he's on the same page with what I'm seeing and focusing based on cost estimates that we're seeing currently. And then we can have a candid conversation as to where we think some of the overages or the savings will be. And then the future meetings is probably one of the big things I want to make sure I identify. I'm going to set up a meeting with the fire department separately, just the OPM and the fire department, just to talk about wants, needs, and wishes, and to make sure that the current design encapsulates all of that. And then just look at, you know, any of the concerns or conceptions that they might have. I'm going to meet also with the designer independently. And we do that, and I spoke to Matt in detail about why we do that. It's more of to see if there's any, not only his direction or challenges that he might have with it, not only the design, but any of his consultants or concerns that they might have, so that we're ahead of it, and we know, you know, whether we need to have the conversations with X, Y, or Z, and try to correlate that associated with the design as we move forward. And then the meeting dates with this committee, I think we need to meet regularly. I think the more we meet and the more frequently we meet, the more information we'll be able to be provided for the deliverables that we're gonna need for that May meeting. You're gonna need to make decisions on behalf of this project, and we wanna make sure that they're informed decisions. Every 2 weeks is fine, as we talked about, and that'll give us enough time to actually get you some correlated information that you can make decisions on. Does that make sense?
Yep. Okay.
So we can talk about, you already have set do you have meetings set right now where they're every 2 weeks, or is that something that you could set up?
No, it's I mean, it's what we have been doing. We're kind of doing it opposite the Board of Selectmen meetings, just so we
Okay.
can have the, make sure the chief's available and around
Right.
for the discussions and stuff. So that's, you know, I think it's the first and third Mondays would be,
Our meetings.
you know, be our meetings. And then, so, and if a month has 5, then we'll have to deal with that one, but.
Yeah, we'll figure that out. And
Yeah.
then I'll probably reach out to the chief tomorrow and figure out a day that you know, the in-person meetings are great. They may not need to have an in-person. You could do a remote meeting, depending on how things are. Maybe that'll be easier for the group if timing is, but it doesn't matter either way. We want to make sure we're staying efficient in that manner. That same goes to Matt as well. If, you know, I think the weekly meetings that I'd like to have with his group, we can meet remotely and still get the same information done. When it comes to a page turn review or concerns related to the actual drawings themselves, we may want to do it in person, and we'll coordinate that with the department and the building committee. That make sense? So, next steps, I guess, I'd like to start this process as early as next week. We're meeting this week, obviously, so it'll be 2 weeks from today would be the next meeting. Is that the intent?
Correct.
Okay.
That's holiday.
Oh,
It's a holiday, so.
Martin Luther King Jr.
Towns are closed. So I don't celebrate that. Unfortunately, our office still.
We're open.
Yeah.
This room would be available on the 21st.
that's what I was gonna say, is Tuesdays were okay, right? Does that work for everybody if we did the 21st? Okay.
5:30, correct?
Yeah.
All right, great. And with that, I'll set the meeting with the fire department, and minutes will be provided with all of these meetings. You know, the reason why, and when we meet with the architect, he's probably gonna wanna take minutes on his part so that we understand, you know, what's being asked and what's the deliverable required as we move forward. Same with the fire department and the building committee. If there's certain things that we bring up that we're gonna need decisions on, we're gonna put timelines and dates associated with that so we can, you know, we'll track forward on it. We provided a list, and I don't know if everybody signed in, but We want to make sure we have the contact points so that distribution will go out to everybody appropriately. And that's pretty much everything I had on the overall agenda that I have. I wanted to talk open discussion if there was anything, Matt, was there anything that you wanted to talk about?
Nothing in particular, just to expand on the brochure. If you wanted us to prepare it, I did bring some examples that we had done for other municipalities. If you guys wanted to flip through some of these, pass them around.
Perfect. Thank you.
I'm assuming we're not ready to put the information together into one of these brochures yet, because I'm assuming you're going to want to get tax impacts and costs and things like that bundled up into there.
That's
Yeah.
gonna be the number one concern of everybody on this project, is just the cost and the impact. That, I can tell you that.
Yeah, 99% of the towns are the same
Yeah.
way.
Is that something that we could get ahead of, knowing what the sort of maximum appetite the building committee is prepared to go forward with as a not to exceed?
I think it's premature to say that tonight.
Yeah.
I think once we do a takeoff on what the construction costs are in my projection, along with the soft costs, I'll be able to elaborate that.
Okay.
Within the next 2 weeks, you'll know.
We could connect with either like the assessor's office or someone in town that works on finance, just to get a tax impact run on. If we know a dollar amount, we can run a couple different ones based on that. And that's obviously run on the average share of a house, so it's gonna be one number, but different for everyone.
So some of the ones that are smaller than a page, those were sort of postcard mailers that we had done. Some of them are single 8.5 by 11 handouts that you might have at town meeting, and some were a little bit more comprehensive, a little bit more information.
To Matt's point, whatever's on those trifolds or single page, however it goes out, want to make sure that same information at the public forums that we're presenting on is identical and assertive, reinforcing all of that information.
Yeah, I think the key is to agree on what is the
Content.
information and then how we present. It needs to be uniform.
Well, that, one additional thing too is our level of certainty with the budget, right? That's my primary concern with, I'm not sure where the design is right now, but the second we put a number anywhere,
You own it.
that's the number, right?
Yep.
It's gonna be very hard to move on that.
So I can talk on your design. To this point, you're early on the conceptual design is very conservative on square footage costs because it's not really a lot, it's not robust enough to really put some hard numbers against certain aspects, mechanical, plumbing, and all of those aspects. It will be a conservative number initially because nothing worse is asking for more after the fact. We want to make sure that we're encompassing what the worst case scenario will be and then hopefully going with a reduction as we move closer. Okay.
Just through the chair, so I'm pleased to hear that you're going to have discussions with the men and women of the Auburn Fire and get their input. I mean, we can look at, we haven't really seen it up close, we've seen it on the screen and try to figure it out, but for them to look and see how it flows and, I may be mixing terms with design, is design being the functionality of the layout and design being the outward appearance. Because I have heard some rumblings from folks that maybe that's not, it doesn't jump out at them, or they like it, kind of like myself, I like it, but I don't
Love it.
love it.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if there's any mechanism by which to poll, whether it's through the fire department's Facebook page, just to get an idea of do people like it, hate it, do they like it or love it, to look to see if we should early on make some adjustments. We don't want to lose folks just on appearances. If they can never get to the functionality phase of the project because there's something visually that it's not visually appealing to them, so.
I've had projects fail because of aesthetics, believe it or not. Like, it just didn't fit within the town or the locality of where it might have been. we're early enough where we have so there's two, to clarify, the program needs are separate than the exterior aesthetic elevation. So I think the exterior aesthetic elevations should be discussed now. The earlier we catch it, the earlier I can capture it within the cost estimate to make sure that it's not imposing a drastic cost increase based on some relative minor changes. So if we're talking major roof lines and that might be, even I looked at the original conceptual, I had some questions on part of the design, and that would be a conversation I was gonna have with the designer as to what their design intent and their thought process was through it, that's all. So I think if there's, from the building committee, if there's feedback that you're hearing of aesthetic changes that I'd like to see, I'd like to hear what those are, because that would be important for us to have that discussion.
I think personally, just through the interview process and seeing all the presentations of facilities across New England,
Right.
those other ones that sort of jumped out a little bit, and I'm like, wow, that's,
Right.
I like that,
Yep.
so, it's just a thought.
I can be a little more specific. The angled roof is probably gonna be polarizing.
It's the first thing I said as well,
Yeah.
and that, and Matt, and, okay, Chief, so.
Doesn't scream fire station to me.
Through the chair, so this actually is something I've been thinking about the last couple of weeks, and the committee may want to host a design charrette. I know that when the town was moving forward with the Mary D. Stone project and the Vinyl Street project for the assisted living, they held a public design charrette where people had the ability to come in, voice their concerns on anything from colors to roof lines to all of those kind of things. So I think that probably would be helpful, that maybe we try to pull together even as soon as by the end of the month, maybe invite town meeting members, any members from the public that want to come to the high school and have that conversation about design.
I think that's a great idea as well.
Yeah.
And by catching it early, the designer will have a better understanding of what the town's flavor is with it. My only question would be, obviously you were contracted through a certain point. Does the designer feel comfortable enough, based on their current contract obligations, that the charrette and these type of things would be within your scope of work?
I'll go back and review the contract and let you know.
Okay. So we may have to have that conversation, that's all.
Very, very limited in what's left in it.
Yeah, we can stretch dollars pretty well, though, so we'll figure that, we'll figure it out.
But, so based on that, Matt, I mean, we have very conceptual plans at the moment. What's the schedule right now that you were anticipating for producing the next set of, I don't know what, I know we're at conceptual right now, but what's the next one? Schematic design,
Yeah, which I don't have in contract. We just have conceptual design, and it was limited to architectural only, not any of the other disciplines. We put a proposal together a couple of years ago to include a more robust package, and it was reduced back.
So there's a gap there.
So what I've asked, to that question specifically, I asked Matt and Jeff to put together, a cost associated with each of those steps, so that we have a clear understanding as to what the exposure is going to be, and then we can have a more candid conversation
Yeah.
as to where we need to be. Because usually it's broken down by phase.
Do you have a feeling, Matt, of how long the schematic design phase would take?
A full schematic design for a project this size.
From where you are right now to that point, that's what he's asking.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to speak on your behalf, I just,
Oh, thank you, that's a good point, yeah, from now.
Probably about 12 weeks.
Okay.
my question, Matt, would that be a robust schematic design?
3 months.
That's
Yeah.
February, March,
Okay.
April. You're right.
tight.
Yeah. Takes you to April, and you're right at the.
Well, that's where I was going with it. I need it to be schematic, almost leaning towards design development to give us enough information for costs. So, and your disciplines, typically you would engage your disciplines at that point for mechanical and that. So. And I think that duration of having the charrette sooner than later is gonna give us that much more information for
Yep.
him to be able to move to that next level. And my expectation from the charrette is you're gonna probably come up with a couple of different options to be narrowed down to a design so that we can put a hard number against.
Through the chair, just, would there be a point as the OPM that you would come back and say, we're pushing this, it's too tight? We're trying to accomplish too much.
Time-wise? Oh,
Time-wise.
yeah, you're gonna hear about that every 2 weeks. So,
No, but at some point, we truly raise the flag and go, we're not getting there.
yeah, no, I,
Here in
I,
12 weeks for a schematic before you can give us a true budget number, which, you know, it impacts the marketing end of it. Yeah.
yeah, I would, yeah, absolutely. I, you know, and that's part of the discussion with the designer on a weekly basis that we'd have. If there's something that's holding them up or something that we can make more efficient, we want to know about what we need to do. And that may be decisions from the fire department or the building committee. The more easily the decisions are made, the quicker the designer moves forward. That's simple.
Through the chair, the challenge that we have is that town administration has been reluctant, and I understand the reason, but they have been reluctant to put a lot of money towards the design until they know that they have a project. They're being very cautious in terms of the amount of money that they're putting towards design on a project that has not been approved. So, as Matt said, we're about at the end. We appropriated $50,000 for them to do the conceptual design, and that's what they've done for us at this point. They've done an interior layout with an exterior view. So if we are talking about trying to achieve a schematic design or even some level of a schematic design, there is currently no budget for that. So that is something that we will have to have a conversation with the town manager about. I can tell you that there is a balance in the demo, even after we remove the $100,000 for the OPM. There still is a balance of about $70,000 from the demo money. But I'll just throw out there that there is no budget currently, and there has been some reluctance in order to spend that design money until there's an approved project. But I get it. In order to get the voters sort of the right information that they need, we need that phase. But I think that's kind of the struggle we have at the moment.
So,
Chief, at the select board meeting, I don't have a problem emphasizing the importance of, getting that information, to have some tight numbers to be able to get that number for a successful vote. So I'll be prepared to talk about that.
Yep.
I guess
Okay.
my question would be, is there any way that we come up with a number that we can stand behind without that schematic design?
It would be very conservative, I can tell you that much, because I'm putting my neck out on the chopping block when I turn around. So I'll work with the estimators to be able to figure out what that number is at today's. And just so we're crystal clear, we typically will forecast the overall cost of that building to midpoint of construction. So our schedule's gonna show, town meeting, and then what it's gonna take to get us to bidding, and then what it's gonna take us to construct. So the answer is yes, but it will be conservative.
Because I have concerns that we do not have enough time to get schematic level cost estimates to get in front of May town meeting. Well, town meeting isn't really the issue, so we're representative town meeting. I don't know if you knew that, right? So the issue is the debt exclusion vote that would happen at the May general election, typically the week following the May town meeting. We can always have a special town meeting if we need to have a special town meeting for something, but I think the debt exclusion vote, I can't imagine we would want to run an election just for that, right? Just the cost associated with it. So it would have to get pushed to the November or the primaries, or whenever the next regular election would be. So that's, I think, the conundrum here, I guess, and it's probably worth thinking about what's a realistic timeline for that vote based on where we're at and what we might have to do. Because if we need to get more funds approved through town meeting, that's going to require a special town meeting. that's requires a week notice to put the warrant out and get everything scheduled. So you're talking February, probably before we would get funding authorization for schematic.
Right, and so I guess I'm hearing everything you're saying, so the charrettes are gonna be even more important right now. And my question back to Matt would be, based on the charrettes and the comments back, within your funds of the conceptual design that you have, would you be able to do a few elevations with some different roof lines that I could take and run with as far as the costs associated with that? It's doable. I mean, I can give you a number on a robust conceptual of what I think the projection costs are gonna be. The unknown is it's today's best guess at what the numbers are running at. You know, if the market continues at what we're doing right now, I mean, there's escalation going on. We're not seeing the 2018-19 numbers with construction right now. It's held, once we hit that milestone increase, it hasn't decreased substantially. It's reduced a little bit, but it hasn't dropped to those numbers.
So is that a number you would have in 2 weeks to start with?
Yeah.
Or like, here's the ballpark of what we might have to put forward if we don't go forward with the conceptual?
And I'll have numbers of what it would cost to move to that next level from the architect at that point as well. Is that fair to say?
Okay.
I'm not putting words in the mouth, we talked earlier. So.
Yeah. So I think that's probably what we need to do for next meeting is like really nail down, can we get this for the May election? You know, because if we don't feel comfortable with the number that comes back and we want to fine tune it, then, you know, we're not gonna be able to put it on the May ballot, right? There's just not enough time.
Yeah, it's gonna be a square footage cost.
Yeah.
And that square footage, obviously apparatus is a little less money than admin area, just so we're putting it in perspective, okay?
Can I make a recommendation on the schedule budget piece? So we're gonna be running more or less the cost per square foot. I think what would be helpful is if we had a schedule that kind of aligns the design team's plan, you know, for the schematic design, when that estimate would be reconciled, and then the subsequent ones. Reason being is that'll kind of tell us where our level of certainty needs to be, because I do think if we push it, if there ends up a scenario, we push it to November, like Kevin said, that escalation cost keeps going up.
It
So then
does.
we run into the problem, I think you saw some of the posts of like, well, if we wait 5 years, the project's gonna cost even more. And I think that would be great information to provide, you know, everybody to say, look, this is a cost per square foot now. We're gonna be dialed in by X amount of percentage on this date based on these kind of deliverables. That would be helpful if we can get that information.
Out of that estimate that we'll give you, there's a 1.6 escalation that's happening. We're gonna show you what it is on a monthly basis, so you know what the increases are.
Is that a, like, schedule right now? I can't remember if that was part of your proposal. Is that something that you could provide in 2 weeks along with that budget of roughly where you think those milestones would
Yeah.
be? Great.
A draft for discussion.
Right. Well, it's contingent on the, right.
I'm just being honest with you about it. I just,
No, and I would just add, I know, to the chief's point, and from my experience working with the town for the past 6-7 years, I'm sure this is probably not gonna fly, but you certainly could always appropriate additional seed money to continue the design work at the spring town meeting, to have probably a design development level estimate in November. So if you wanted to appropriate design, if you wanted to appropriate additional design funding at this town meeting, wait till November to fund the construction. We've worked with other communities to go down that road in the past. It certainly has more risk of spending design fee for a project that may not get off the ground or might not get fully funded, but waiting another 6 months or a year and a half, you know, that's millions of dollars. It could be millions of dollars that you're gonna escalate out, so.
Well, I do think we could have a special town meeting, if we needed to allocate the funds. That's not unusual. We've done that. We did that for the purchase of the property. That was November, you know, a special, town meeting for that as well. So I don't think the timing of it, I think it's just, you know, if you say 12 weeks from when I get, you know, funding, that could be mid-February or later, right? Which pushes us pretty hard to try to get something, you know, approved. Now, if we get a number we like, that's our conservative rough based on square footage, and it doesn't, you know, I know the numbers that people are throwing around in town that aren't probably realistic, they're like, it's gonna cost this much and I'm never gonna vote for it. If we're talking a number that approaches that as our conservative guess, then it's not worth putting forward.
Understood.
If we're not near that, then maybe it's worth considering, you know, and that's, I think we're just gonna have to look at it in 2 weeks and,
Yeah, hopefully we're less than that.
yeah.
So when do we want to, would we want to target a design charrette then? So the next 2 weeks, the next month, or would we, you know,
You want it before the end of the month, that's right.
and is this a Saturday thing? Is this a,
So looking at the calendar, your next meeting would be the 21st. So it would be, if we started advertising it tomorrow, if we selected a date, it would be about 3 weeks away. We could do a Saturday. We've tried to do things on some Saturdays without much luck.
yeah,
I think my recommendation would try to be, you know, maybe a 6 or a 6:30 at the high school, you know, try to do a hard stop by 8 o'clock or something like that, make it reasonable for people.
Like the week of the 28th.
Well, the week of the 28th, that would push us to the end of January. So if we wanted to go out 3 weeks from today, we would be looking at the week of the 20th. The committee's meeting on the 21st, so we could shoot for, you know, like the 22nd, or we could do the following Monday or Tuesday, which would be 27, 28. You know, I would leave that up to you, but I think as long as we completed it by the end of the month, I think we would be in good shape.
Just through the chair, what would this charrette, what would it consist of, and is there a mechanism out there to do virtual components so you get more people feel like they had some
You
input?
can do both. You
in
can
the
do,
input
you
in
can
the
do a
process?
mix. Having them in person always works out a lot better because they verbalize and you can talk about how the charrettes go. I've been participating in them, and physically he's going to do drawing lines. He's going to kind of hear their general comments, and then takes that back and provides 2 or 3 different options.
Yeah, we can use, anybody from like
Whiteboard,
Mentimeter,
I'm sorry, what was the application?
Mentimeter.
Oh yeah.
So we do for a lot of public information sessions. We use it's an app on your phone, or it's a website, and we can set up a series of designs or questions and things like that where the audience can sort of upvote things that they like, and it starts to demonstrate live results of what's favorable, what's not favorable, things like that. So we can set something up along those lines. It tends to be pretty helpful.
Can people do that remotely as well if they weren't in person?
I think so.
Could we do something on like social media or something, have like 3 different designs, and people seem to be a little more responsive when they're not being face to face. Everyone's keyboard commandos nowadays, you know? So if you could put something up like through the fire department's page or something, A, B, and C, you know, which one do you like kind of thing, you know, like for this one, or I think you might get some response out of some of that stuff.
It's a good idea.
Yeah, I've seen that on Facebook before, in town Facebook pages. And
Yeah, like almost a survey.
Right, right. I think you're going to get a lot more feedback off of social. Everyone likes social media in this town. You go on our Auburn page, it's very entertaining at times. And,
Before you get to there,
is
you
that
need to
before or after the charrette?
After the charrette.
I was going
because
to say
you
it's
need to
after
get
the charrette. You
input
got to get
as to
some,
what do you want it to
Right.
look like. They provide the 3 options, then you get the feedback.
right,
In my opinion.
yep.
That'd be pretty easy to set up. Yeah, once we have the options.
Yeah. So we'll shoot for the,
Shoot for, that week that the week that we're having the next meeting. I mean, I assume there's enough to talk about 2 weeks from now. Without it, then you can have the charrette, and then the next meeting after that, we'll you have a week and a half out or whatever, and to get prepared for the next committee meeting.
So the 20, we talking the 22nd for the charrette? Or the
We'd have-
27th?
No, some-
The 22nd.
Yeah, sometime 22nd, 23rd, somewhere in there, depending on what the availabilities are and stuff.
Do the 22nd.
I could do the 22nd, 23rd, I'm booked already, so.
Depending on what the agenda would look like for the meeting on the 21st, you could also do both. The committee
Yeah.
could still meet at 5:30,
Oh.
conduct your regular
Yeah,
business.
agreed.
At this point, it's only 6:15.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the charrette at
Could
6:30.
we
Yeah.
do it some, like here?
Yeah, that's what he's saying.
Yeah.
So,
We do it here, or we do it in
I would
the,
I
do
recommend we
it
do it
High school.
room
in the
at
presentation
high
room?
Do it in
Yeah.
Oh,
at the high school. in the
school.
presentation.
Yeah.
yeah, just
Okay.
schedule the meeting there.
Okay,
Yeah, why don't we do that? That'd be
we'll
perfect.
do it for the 21st, and
It'll
the
be a-
meeting to
a
start. and-
Combination. Chief, good recommendation. You're chief for a reason.
Presentation room is recorded, right? That's one of our,
They can, yes.
okay,
Yeah. That's wired for.
yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
So our agenda on the 21st, it'll be probably 4 bullets that we're gonna talk about, and then we'll jump right into charrette.
Okay. Sounds good. Any other comments, questions?
It was very helpful. It gives me a lot more insight as to, like, what would Jason right now?
Yeah.
If you post that meeting on the social meeting page, you may have a packed house.
Maybe.
Yeah,
My,
maybe.
my experience
Yeah.
is
Yeah,
that
30,
there's a lot of people,
35.
a lot of talk and not a lot of actually showing up,
Right.
but.
I would
still-
welcome it, to have the
Yeah,
people
yeah,
there.
I mean, sure, I mean, but I think the fire capacity of that room is 65 or something like that, but, or is
We
it
got a
bigger than
couple
that?
hundred.
Oh, that's right.
Presentation room is over 200.
That's right, if you take the tables out.
So just for clarity, for the charrette, we're not gonna show any designs with this, we're gonna show 50 firehouses or something like that from around the country and say, what do you like about this one, what do you like about that?
Well,
Or-
I would start with you've got a conceptual design, that you've gotten some feedback that, there may be other options, and then I would lean right into some of these other options, and then you're gonna get better feedback. Because if you ask them, you're not gonna get the same information until you show them some of the different options. that's all.
And I could be surprised that people may actually like, we might get a lot of positive feedback too, right? It's just, it's non-traditional.
Yeah.
And I think that's sometimes scary, and sometimes people are like, oh, honestly, I saw the old Chuck's building, it had the same slope roof in the old Chuck's building.
Actually, the new bank that they're building on Southbridge Street, it
Yeah,
has the
same
slope
thing,
roof.
yeah. So, it may not be an issue, I don't know.
To a few, that's all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, perfect.
Any other discussions, comments?
Let's make sure we put an agenda item to approve the meeting minutes from the
Yeah.
16th, 17th, and this meeting.
there was
on the,
Well,
it's not on this, that's.
yeah, I don't think maybe we did have meeting minutes, I don't know.
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
We'll include a section on that moving forward.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
I think I'm gonna regret asking this, but should we have a point person from our group to be the one to post, actual post, like, I'm not talking comments on the Auburn site, but if I wanna post about the design charrette on the 21st, should there be one person from our group that says, hey, this is the next meeting? Because eventually we'll get in a routine of, here's the next meeting, here's the information.
I think we should just have it published online,
Okay.
and then anybody could just share the link. And therefore, we would have this consistent messaging, right? So that's kind of what so there was like I said, a big long thread just this weekend. And that got me thinking about, you know, if we just had canned responses to common questions or here's the facts, then any one of us could just respond with a link to the exact language, you know, like here's the facts. We don't have to try to paraphrase it or explain it, of just like, you know, like one of the questions was, what are they going to do with the fire tower? You know, the training tower, right? Well, it's like, well, we're not doing anything. We're keeping it. We're going to use it.
Yeah.
But you know, that was a good question.
Yeah.
And to just be able to say, you know, here's the link. This will explain everything without having to come up with your own answers. I think that means that anybody would be able to respond to anywhere that somebody had a question. You'd be able to say, hey, here you go.
It
here's-
stays consistent.
Yep. Yeah.
The project page has the FAQ now on it? It does.
Yeah. And I think just making sure that we update, because I'm not sure that was on there.
I just made a note.
There you go.
of
Yeah.
that tonight.
So, and you know, like some of the other things that I discovered, people didn't realize there were 2 fire stations. Right? They're like, what's wrong with what's wrong with the fire station? And it's just like, you know, why are they building it over there when it's over here? And it's like, well, no, there's 2, and there's 2 for a reason. And, you know, and I think just there's some cleanup we can do on the,
Right.
you know, the FAQ to just, so it was really, you know, I think, useful to go through everybody's questions and complaints and comments, but, you know, and just say, hey, you know what, there's some things in there that I think we could be more clear on.
Part of the charrette, and I'm just talking out loud, would it be a good idea to recap of where you are and how you got to where you are right now, then going right into the charrette? Just to give people, because obviously the department, the need for it is there. I think maybe just recapping it at a high level.
Yep.
And then I think it would inform the people that are there, and hopefully that embodies in discussions with other people as the reasons behind it. That's
I
all.
think it's probably worth doing that at any public
Right.
setting, right? I mean, it's been such a long
Yeah.
process, so.
And you already have
Yeah, it's always,
you?
Yeah, and I already have the PowerPoint that I did at town meeting.
So it's always helpful to hear that we're scaling back from a $70 million.
Right, that's where I was
Yeah.
going with it.
Yeah.
That's exactly where I was going with
So,
it.
yeah,
We heard what you had to say, you know, we took it to heart, this is the option that we're moving forward.
Yeah.
That's all. Sends a positive note.
Just a question on the site. I mean, the chief's done a great job with the project page over this term, but is there, do you folks provide services as well? Is the potential for your page to be a more robust page with the town website can be a little, I'm not a web designer, it's a little bit limiting, and professional designers on your end. Is there something, should we be redirecting the project?
We could enhance yours to make it better.
Okay.
Typically, it has to come from you guys, we give you the information to post.
Okay. So for robust tours and
Yeah.
flyovers and all that stuff could be, okay, incorporated that way. Thank you.
Any other questions?
should I make a?
Take a, if there's no other questions, discussions, or whatever, take a
I'll
motion
make
to
a Motion
adjourn.
to adjourn.
Second.
With a second, all those in favor? Aye. So we'll be meeting on the 21st
At the high school.
at the high school.